training is for male feminist network. The aim is to demystify the concept of feminism and for us to proudly wear our, where is the insignia? The brooch, proudly male feminist. And what we want to do is to promote gender equality and women empowerment. But one major entry point is prevention of gender-based violence. So, what is it? How can we explain gender-based violence? And there is the socio-ecological model, which argues that an individual's ability and power to change behavior is affected by a layer of influences. I gave a personal story yesterday that I grew up in a typical patriarchal family, a farming community where the man is king. But I became gender sensitive, quite separate and different from my brothers and uncles, but the same family. The reason being knowledge and exposure. So the argument by this model is that an individual can change his behavior and is at 5 levels. First, at the individual level, there are individual factors that can help in terms of your, it's not very clear. Okay, at the individual level, you see there are 6 areas. Knowledge, page 80. Knowledge, skills, beliefs and values, self-efficacy, perceived norms, and emotions. And I was sharing that my knowledge of Marxism and my knowledge gained from women in Nigeria shaped my own world outlook. And even thinking more, my experiences in life. You know, my father died in 1969 when I was just 6 years. And I was raised by a very strong woman. In fact, in my mother's family, they cannot hold meeting without my mother's presence. So, you know, it's those kind of women that they describe as man because of, so I had that strong feminine background. And then, of course, I married a strong woman, and I have a powerful daughter. So, all of these individual factors shape your own mindset, perception, and possibility of change. The second is at the family level. The peer influence. That's why you see Nigerian men will go to UK and do domestic work and come back, even during holidays, with the same woman and refuse to enter the kitchen throughout because of peer influence. Spousal communication. Partner and family influence. And social support. You live in a house where there is cook, there is houseboy, and other domestic staff and family staying with you. It can affect a lot of things. I remember when I was living in Lagos, we're living in a story building, so upstairs. So there was a time there was no water. So I came back from work, I carried bucket, and you have to just go outside the gate to fetch water. I carried the bucket as I was walking like this outside the gate. About 5 people, not from my house, compound people, ran to me and dragged the bucket. Because how can Oga go and fetch water? You know? So those kinds of partner and family influence and social support can influence the community. The kind of leadership in the community. You know, there are many communities today. From our work at St. LSD, in Becheve community in Cross River State, our work led to the direct abolition of what is called money woman, a situation where women, young girls, at times even before they are born, are betrothed to a man because of money. And those kind of women are not regarded as normal woman that is married. So it doesn't have all the rights and privileges of a real married woman. But our work led to the abolition, and it's as a result of the leadership at that community at that time. We saw our advocacy, made a proclamation abolishing the law, went to the local government, and it was put in the edit. So the leadership at the community, the kind of information people have access to, all of this or service delivery, access, quality, client volume, and client satisfaction. And then finally, enabling environment. The leadership, the resources and services, the laws, policies, and regulation, the guidance and protocols, the religious and cultural values, the gender norms, the media and technology, and income equality. All of this affects how people respond to gender-based violence. So, if you look at the diagram, gender-based violence is reinforced or disrupted by nested layers of influence. And what we are trying to do is to disrupt. Because men hold disproportionate formal or informal power in many settings. Engaging them at each layer is critical. So whether at individual level, whether at family level, whether at community level, service delivery, or creating enabling environment, men are critical. So, what roles do men play in reinforcing or disrupting gender-based violence across the 5 levels we have identified? At the individual level, in terms of the beliefs, skills, and history, examples of main power brokers include fathers, older brothers, mentors, coaches, male celebrities, and youth leaders. And they can reinforce GBV by promoting beliefs like men don't cry, encourage sexual entitlement, or blame survivors for violence. But they can disrupt GBV by model help-seeking behavior, teaching and respecting consent, modeling nonviolence, teaching emotional regulation, and publicly pledging zero tolerance for GBV. At the family or relationship level, examples of main powers or brokers are husbands, partners, peer groups, and friendship circles. And they can reinforce GBV by controlling partners' money or movement, by enforcing silence and abuse, by engaging in banter or jokes that normalize abuse. And this is why at times in some organizations, it's good to have gender champions. For some people, it's sleep. For others, it's a normal thing. Say, no, mine now because now woman. Anytime you see anybody say such a thing, immediately, you should challenge it. At times, people say it unconsciously. At times, people say it deliberately. But whether it's unconscious or deliberate, we must have people in organizations who are champions in communities who should always challenge those stereotypes. And they make it look at jokes, but it's not really a joke. So the way to disrupt it is to practice shared decision-making, demonstrate positive fathering, build couples communication skills, and engage in bystander intervention. That's what we're trying to say. Be a bystander intervention. Anytime you see such thing, as a male feminist, do not just smile and think you will be normalizing the abnormal. At the community level, examples of male power brokers, and these should be part of the people we should be targeting at the zonal levels. Teachers. So if our zonal coordinators can get NUT and ask them to bring all NUT people together or during their meetings, and you do a training. I was just speaking with Vincent, I hope you are listening, if our zonal partners can bring, in your own budget, you should also be flexible, but inform us, If you get NUT to have a meeting of 200 teachers, and you come a day's meeting, so you don't have to pay for accommodation and all of those things, and then you do a training that goes from morning till 1 p.m., for instance, that goes through the major concept and issues of male feminism and gender-based violence. Maybe we should actually make some PowerPoint presentations that can give the details in 3 hours. And then after that, they do the quiz, and they join the network and begin to do other things. But what we are saying is that at the community level, teachers, lecturers, ASU, get ASU to have that, union leaders, Okada riders, religious leaders, at congregational level, traditional world heads, markets leaders, transport leaders, target them because they have the capacity to reinforce GBV by allowing impunity for perpetrators, engaging in victim blaming, encouraging sell-to-it-at-home culture, engaging in search for grace or search for jail exploitation. But they can disrupt. If we can create clear reporting channels, they can even internally, enforce sanctions against perpetrators. Can you imagine what it would be in a motor park if the training is done and they put rule in that motor park, that in this motor park, we must not be, because in motor park, going to hit a girl's buttocks is a common occurrence. That they put rules and say in this motor park, we won't do such things. That will be a major gain. And enforcing perpetrator sanctions against perpetrators, implementing workplace or school anti-harassment policies, and then delivering sermon and talks, religious leaders condemning GBV and supporting Men's Ally Network. When we talk about policies in terms of this project, we are not talking about, only government policies. You can facilitate training in a motor park, and the motor park make a policy. You can help them draft a one-page policy, and they sign it. That becomes policy that is implementable within that motor park. At the service delivery levels, examples of main power brokers are medical directors, chief medical officers, heads of GBV one-stop center, DPO, investigating police officer, prosecutors, Ministry of Justice, judges, magistrates, social welfare, school principal, registry heads. All of these give an indication of the kind of people that our zonal leaders should engage with, because they can reinforce GBV by victim blaming, refusing post-exposure prophylaxis or forensic examination, poor documentation, chain of custodies, encouraging settle at home, case delays or corruption, breaching confidentiality and lack of referral pathways. But they can disrupt through enforcing survivor sector standard operating procedures, ensuring post-exposure prophylaxis is provided within 72 hours and forensic kits are available, establishing GBV desks and one-stop centers, protecting survivor confidentiality, fast-tracking GBV case management, and implementing interagency referral memorandum of understanding. And then at the level of the society, enabling environment, laws, media, culture, and environment, examples of male power brokers will include council of chiefs, clerical councils, politicians, media owners, editors, heads of security agencies. All of this gives an indication of the kind of people that our zonal partner should be targeting in terms of people to bring into the network, because they can reinforce GBV by weak enforcement of the VAP Act, by maintaining harmful traditional rights, and promoting sexist media portrayals. We've seen sexist media portrayals in this country, and we've seen how, through resistance, some of them have been brought down. For instance, Mamana Boy. You remember that? Yeah, Mamana Boy, which promotes some preference to girl child, and through reactions of the public, that advert was brought down. But there are still many sexist ones. in order to attract your attention that your wife is having an affair. And having an affair with an inanimate object. So there are many sexist adverts, sexist portrayals of women. These are things that reinforce gender-based violence. But there are ways this can be disrupted by allocating funds and enforcing GBV laws, issuing faith-based or traditional statements against abuse, regulating harmful media portrayal, and resource survivor support services. So, this is the model that we have tried to explain, that GBV, to understand it, you have to see both at the individual level, at the family or relationship level, at the community level, and at the societal level. And that GBV is not caused by alcohol. GBV is not caused by poverty. GBV is not caused by anger. It is caused by power used to dominate and control another human being. That is why the explanation that women are the cause of GBV is not a good explanation. Because your wife abuses you, you beat her. Your boss, who is a female, abuses you, you go to your office and cry. So it's because you have power over that wife, and you can beat her. Imagine the example of my village, where if that my village where that woman beats the husband, if the woman abused the husband, what would the husband do? Nothing. Nothing, because he cannot beat her. Do you get it? So that is why our intervention has to be along these 4 lines. At the individual level, the cause is because there is a learned behavior. For some people, it's because of childhood exposure to violence, which makes one to see violence as normal. But there is the story of twins. 2 of them. One of them was not engaged in violence. The other was engaged in violence. When they asked the one that was engaged in violence, how is it that you're always beating your wife? He said he learned it from his father, because his father was always beating the mother. When they asked the other one, why is it that you don't beat your wife? He said he learned it from his father, that his father was always beating his mother, and he made a commitment not to beat his wife. So individual differences is important. Personal history is a risk, but it's not a justification. So what really causes violence is power imbalance, controlling behavior, financial dependence. Many people, when there is financial dependence, the ability for violence becomes much more. And the key insight is that intimate relationship can reinforce abuse if inequality exists. At the community level, the thing is that harassment has been normalized. There is culture of silence and lack of support system. So communities often enable impunity through silence or tolerance. At the societal level, there are patriarchal norms, there are discriminatory laws, there is media reinforcement, as we have said earlier, and so the society-wide systems and norms uphold and perpetuate GBV. So the core message is that GBV is not caused by alcohol. GBV is not caused by poverty. GBV is not caused by anger. It is caused by power used to dominate and control another human being. Okay, so there are GBV risk enhancers, things that increase GBV. So we have said GBV is not caused by alcohol, poverty, or anger, but we know that they can often act as risk enhancers or contributing factors. So when you take alcohol, it lowers self-control and impairs judgment, increasing the likelihood of violent outbursts. It's used as an excuse. Perpetrators often bloom alcohol for their actions to avoid accountability. So victims under the influence of alcohol may be more vulnerable to sexual assault. So the insight is that alcohol may trigger or intensify violent incidents, but it does not cause GBV. Many people drink without ever becoming violent. There are many people, after drinking, they go into the gutter and sleep. After that time, they wake up and go. They don't beat anybody. So it's not the cause of alcohol. So the role of poverty in GBV creates stress, economic hardship, and lead to frustration and tension in households, which may escalate into abuse. It limits options for survival. Women in poverty may feel trapped in abusive relationships due to financial dependence. And it exacerbates power dynamics. Economic control is a common form of abuse, especially when one partner holds all financial power. The insight here is that poverty may increase the risk or severity of GBV, but does not justify it. Rich and powerful individuals also commit GBV. It's about power, not poverty. What is the role of anger in GBV? Anger acts as a trigger, not a cause. Anger can escalate conflict, but most people experience anger without becoming abusive. You can imagine, if the president of this country is a woman, will you go and beat him? No. You just a verse, you go verse for your house. Like now, many people with a para, but what do you go do to Tinubu? Nothing. You just para on your own and you cool down because you don't have power over him. So, emotional dysregulation. Individuals with poor coping mechanism may resort to violence when angry, especially if they believe they are entitled to control others. The insight here is that anger is a normal emotion, but using it as a weapon is a learned behavior. GBV is a choice to harm, not an uncontrollable reaction. So we've looked at these ones earlier, that the various myths, only poor or uneducated women abuse, only poor or uneducated men abuse women. We've looked at it earlier, and we have discussed all of this, that the reality is that GBV cuts across all social, economic, and educational levels, that abusers can be rich, educated, religious, or influential. The second myth is that a woman's behavior causes abuse. We've also discussed it, and we said, but the reality is that abuse is never the victim's fault. The responsibility always lies with the perpetrator. The third myth is that men do not get raped. There was a heated debate on this, and we said but the reality is that men and boys can also be survivors of rape and deserve justice and support. We also look at, it's not rape if it happens in marriage. We had some people quoting the scriptures here, but the reality is that marital rape is a crime under the VAP Act. And we warned them that they should be careful. If not, they will go to jail. That consent is required in all sexual encounters. Domestic violence is a private family matter. The reality is that violence is a crime, not a private matter. It affects families, communities, and national development. Legal literacy, the VAP Act. There are this one is very important in this work, is to emphasize that gender-based violence is a crime. I remember, Vincent, when we started the network of men leaders to end violence against women, we had a team made up of police officers, public servants, religious leaders who were intervening in cases. And the first few cases we intervened, this is very interesting. When the people report in our hotline and we invite the perpetrator and the victim, the survivor, not victim, the survivor, and we bring them together and we tell them, look, this man is a superintendent, this is a police officer, this one is this. Your wife reported that you assaulted her. We want to let you know, according to the VAP Act section, this is a criminal offense. 100% of them changed. 100%. Just letting them know that this thing you have done is a criminal matter. And this man is not a retired, he's a serving police officer. So these laws, and I think in our training we should emphasize this, that there are several laws. The VAP Act prohibits 26 forms of GBV. We mentioned those 26 forms earlier. Child Rights Act protects children from early marriage. This country is just a wonderful country. You see a very rich man married a 15-year-old, and it will be on the newspapers. And doctor, nothing will happen. That is defilement. If the person is arraigned, it's a criminal offense. But nothing is done. But part of it, and I think this is the point, part of it is that people don't know. They are ignorant. If not, they will not advertise it. If you are committing crime, you should be able to hide it. So we need to use the instrumentality of this project to popularize it, that anybody who marries anyone below 18 years is committing a crime, according to the Child Rights Act. Penal and criminal codes, criminal framework used in North and South, respectively, often lack survivor-centered procedures. But we don't need to bother about this one. Let's use the VAP Act. National policy on elimination of female genital mutilation, But apart from the national policy, there are laws. I know, for instance, in Delta State, there is a law against female genital mutilation. Many states. But do you know, I remember the person that sponsored the law, people were making jest of him. Say, look at this man. People went to the House of Assembly and brought things to their places. His law to stop circumcision. That's to tell you how the society looks at these issues. So there is also national priority action to end violence against children. Sexual assault reversal center. There are several reversal centers in our various zones. We should know. Please, zonal partner, this is important. You should know which referral centers are in your place, so that because the moment you begin to raise these issues, people will come to you, and you don't have the facilities to support them, so you should be able to refer them to the appropriate referral centers. So legal literacy and male allyship. I think we are going to talk about this later. I guess so, Vincent. We are going to talk about this later. Yeah. Okay. So, I think I will stop there. So, we want to divide into 5 groups. We have not done group 4 since we came, so we are going to take number 1 to 5. And we will do the group work on page 81. So let's take numbers from 1 to 5. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So all number 1 here. All number 1 here. So what you just do when you come here, you just turn the seat here and you have your this thing there. So group 1, we do individual level. Group 2, we do group level, family level. Group 3, community. Group 4, service. So what are you going to do? You identify 3 to 5 influencers or power brokers. You discuss how these reinforce or disrupt. You reflect on what myths are popular at their layer. You pick one influential power broker, assigned layer of the socio-economical model, and design an intervention that demonstrates male allyship. And then just look at it. It's in page 81. Page 81. So appoint a chair and a secretary.